Canada's ruling Liberal Party is set to choose a new leader in the coming hours who will replace Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister. Mr. Trudeau led the Liberals to power in 2015, but in January he announced he would step down after a new party leader is chosen. There are four candidates applying for the job, but only Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney are believed to have a real chance to win. Carney is a former governor of Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, and Freeland was one of Mr. Trudeau's most well-known cabinet members before she resigned. Canada's Liberals were far down in the polls against their rivals, the Conservative Party of Canada. But they surged back into contention as Donald Trump began making threats against Canada. Under Canadian law, a general election must be held this fall at the latest. Laurie Turnbull is a Canadian political analyst and professor at Dalhousie University, and she joins us from Ottawa. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, after over 10 years in power, Trudeau will step down Sunday as leader of the Liberal Party. Why now?
There was a lot of pressure on him to step aside when he made the announcement early January. I think there was a lot of relief in his party. There was a sense that he was the one responsible for the low polling numbers they had. A lot of people in the party felt that as soon as he stepped aside, their fortunes would go up for the next election, and that's what happened. As soon as he did, the party started to go up in the polls again, and absolutely the threats from Donald Trump in terms of tariffs, Canada becoming the 51st state, that only seems to have pushed support to the Liberal Party at this point.
Yeah, I want to play some sound from Donald Trump because, as you mentioned, he has attacked Canada, launched a trade war, threatened a takeover. Let's just listen to Donald Trump, what he had to say.
They get 95% of their product from the United States. I think they have to become the 51st state. I think Canada is going to be a very serious contender to be our 51st state. As a state, it's different. As a state, it's much different. And there are no tariffs. So I'd love to see that, but some people say that would be a long shot. If people wanted to play the game right, it would be 100% certain that they'd become a state.
Talk to us about the reaction in Canada in the midst of this leadership transition. How serious is that threat?
At first, people were trying to downplay it. At the first time that the Prime Minister and his Finance Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, went to see President Trump in Mar-a-Lago, he actually wasn't president then. There was this comment made that it got out to the Canadian press and to the public about Trump musing about Canada being the 51st state. At that point, people, I think, were prepared to see it as a comment that was made in jest. People were sitting around. It was a social event, no big deal. But he keeps saying it. And so now I think it's not so much that people think it will happen, it's that people think he's serious when he says it. And so there's a sense that the relationship has been broken. We can't trust the partnership with the US as we have before because he seems to have this expansionist motive in his back pocket.
And of course, we saw Trudeau fire back with that blistering speech. I just want to play some of that sound.
They've chosen to launch a trade war that will, first and foremost, harm American families. They've chosen to sabotage their own agenda that was supposed to usher in a new golden age for the United States. Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
I mean, polls show Trudeau's Liberal Party is more popular now since Trump took office. Just explain why.
Well, I think it has had the effect of changing the ballot question. Before Trump was president and before all of this happened with the tariffs and the 51st state talk, the question for the next election in Canada was really about Mr. Trudeau and his lack of popularity. The Conservatives were doing an excellent job of basing their whole campaign on all of the policies that Justin Trudeau had that people didn't like, including the carbon tax, for example. And then people just had a kind of palpable dislike for Trudeau, honestly, and that was growing. And that had a lot to do with why the Liberals were so down in the polls. The Conservatives were doing great at hammering away at that. But once Donald Trump took office and the reality of the tariffs took hold, I think people started to think differently about what the next ballot question would be. It wasn't about Trudeau anymore because he was stepping aside and there's going to be somebody else now. It was about what is the future of Canada? What kind of policies are we going to have? How will we diversify our trade relationships and do things differently if we have to do that because of the changing nature of the relationship with the US? And I think that has had the effect of putting the two parties back in a more equal space in public opinion. And Mark Carney's candidacy, I think, certainly has helped the Liberals boost their popularity.
So, who is best positioned to navigate relations with Donald Trump and the Trump administration? Former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney or former Finance Minister and journalist Chrystia Freeland or someone else?
So I think a lot of people are looking at Mr. Carney's experience as the Bank of Canada governor, as the Bank of England governor, as reasons why his CV stands out in this case, because he's used to being on a global scale. He has a global network of partnerships and allies. He's got all kinds of contacts all around the world. He's used to dealing with economic crises, and so I think, and he's not a politician, and so he stands out from the crowd. Freeland, on the other hand, she's been a politician for 10 years. She was the first, she was negotiating NAFTA with the first Trump administration. And so she holds that up as an example of why she's the one best situated to do it this time because she's done it before. But I think her ties to the Trudeau government, the fact that she was Trudeau's right hand right up until December of 2024, I think is hard for her. It puts her in a difficult position to really amplify the experiences that she's had because they all tie her to Trudeau.
Right. And of course, the general election will happen before October. So whoever wins this leadership challenge will face another battle soon. What's it going to take for the Liberal Party to hold on to power, given its weak position right now?
Well, I mean, I think that's going to be very difficult, to be honest. Right now, the Liberals are in power, but they are in a minority position. So they have governed since 2021 with the support of another party, the New Democratic Party, and they're kind of a smaller left wing party. They were in a kind of a deal with the Liberals for 2.5 years where they would support pretty much everything the Liberals have done. And so now, for Carney, and assuming it's Carney, to move the party from a minority position to one that's a clear majority that they wouldn't need anyone else. They're secure. That would take flipping a lot of seats and against a very powerful conservative party where even though they don't have the lead that they used to, they're still a very commanding presence in the polls. I think what it would take is for Carney to clearly win the public referendum, which is not real, right? But the referendum in people's minds that he's the right one to deal with Donald Trump. And that will have to be the clear ballot question. And I think Carney would have to win that by a mile in order to put the Liberals in a really comfortable governing position.
Professor Laurie Turnbull, good to have you with us live from Ottawa. I appreciate your analysis. Thank you.